Hey guys, on this week's episode powered by Thrifty Traveler, Richard and I are looking at the government shutdown and deciding whether we think there's going to be a meltdown with the TSA or the FAA before he and I record again next week. He and I both managed to complete our travel this week, and we're talking a little bit about his trip to Toronto, but you can definitely see signs of strain on the system out there. We're looking at JetBlue, trying to figure out, are they on the rise? Is a merger in their future? There are Delta rumors about flights to Asia. Richard and I are weighing in on what we think is the best business credit card, and there's a new Southwest debit card for us to dig into. Finally, we're looking at Rove Miles. Is it really sustainable? All that on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Mr. Kerr is back in the good old US of A and appears to be in one piece with the beauty of LaGuardia Airport standing behind him in all of her majesty. Mr. Kerr, how the heck are you?
I'm doing good, man. I woke up, had breakfast at the Beekman with my dad, who is staying there for his first visit this week. My sister's supposed to be flying into this lovely airport you see behind me tonight, but it is raining in New York City, and we all know what that means. Her flight was already delayed 2 hours when I woke up this morning. So instead of landing at 10:30 p.m., she's supposed to land at 12:45 a.m.
Oh,
I don't think the flight's going to happen. I think it's already delayed that much. So I'm looking for alternatives as we speak to get her from Houston to New York City in a place where she will not be miserably tired tomorrow for a long weekend ahead. So, you know, man, it starts raining in New York City and it's a disaster. But been a very busy week here with we had the in-laws in town last week. I had to go to Toronto for a night. I got the parent, my dad and my sister here. This week, the kids have school stuff. Mrs. Kerr's still married to me, and it's I don't even know where to start. Where do we begin?
well, I'm glad to hear she's still married to you.
I just like to remind people, like, is that woman still hanging around with you? I'm like, she is. You should talk to her about it. She's lovely. You know why she continues to do these crazy things we've done in our married life of picking up and moving 15 times.
We should have her on the show so she can explain. She can explain herself. She should bring receipts too.
She listens to the podcast every week now. She drops the kids off at school and then she walks back.
I
walks
got
back
nasty
from the school.
I got nasty texts from her about people making fun of you or ostracizing you for not upgrading her to business class on the way to Europe.
I wish she would send me more nasty dicks. What? I didn't.
Wow, sharp left-hand turn there.
What? I didn't say that. No, it's good. She does the long walk back and gets her steps in. Not that you actually need any help. Like every day in New York City, I'm doing at least 8,000 steps without even trying, just living life, which is great for, dare I say, the former hefty Kerr. We're trying to keep the V2 alive here, not go back to the hefty. To the hefty Kerr. She listens to the podcast and I get the comments. I get the commentary every week.
I know it's not a 100% accurate interpretation of my VO2 max, but my Oura Ring woke me up this morning to tell me that I have a pretty horrible cardiovascular health and that unless I do something, it's going to be significantly harder for me to climb stairs 10 years from now than it is today. And I would agree with all of those statements.
You should just come work at Bilt. We have the crappiest, slowest elevator in New York that's down most of the time. We have to climb between the basement and the sixth floor routinely for meetings throughout the day. So you get your stairs in over here at Bilt for at least a few more months until we move to the new building.
I'm curious, who's your sister flying? Because it doesn't Southwest fly from Houston to LaGuardia as well as...
They do. That is who she flies. She regularly flies. This has been a long time Southwest flyer.
Yeah.
She's a school teacher, making a school teacher's salary. And she just finds that Southwest is more competitive out of Houston than United out of Bush for the most part.
Yeah.
But, you know, unfortunately, if that plane that's doing, 18 legs in a day gets behind on the second leg, which seems to be the case this morning, it's not going to work out well. So I'm trying to decide, we pull the trigger here and get her some, a massive amount of points to get her up here so that she's not miserable or, because she can't leave either until the school day's over because she's teaching there today. So I asked her, all that stuff, man. So we'll figure it out. I'm sure it'll work out in her favor. Usually.
Yeah, well, while we're talking, I'm going to look and see exactly how many miles it is from Houston to Newark today. I'm sure it's
It's 31,000, which is actually better than I thought, really. I thought it would be way up into the 50s and 60s, but I was looking at the old ultimate reward balances. Like, I think we can do this if truly, and looking at her plane, it's going from like Phoenix to Oakland to Phoenix to Houston to LaGuardia for the rest of today. And I was like, yeah, that's not gonna. They're gonna lose a cruise somewhere in there, or there's they're gonna. I already looked at LaGuardia as a disaster. Newark's a little bit better today this morning, it seems, than LaGuardia. Really strong winds with today's rain as well, which it looks like I think for a little bit this morning they were down to a single runway at LaGuardia, which is just forget about it. Yeah, so we'll see. We'll get old and Mrs. Kerr, the 8th grade school teacher here to New York in one piece. She might just be really tired.
No, she's definitely gonna be really tired. There's no question about that. Are you going to pick her up at the airport?
No, I would, but it's a $75 Lyft ride one way. So we're just going to throw in a Lyft and she'll be fine. She's a seasoned world traveler, that Anna Kerr, so she'll be fine.
All right. Well, we're going to try and get through 10 topics here this week. A little bit of housekeeping. You can text us 571-293-6659. He's at Kerr Points on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion. You can email us at pizzainmotion.com. It is that time of year where Mr. Kerr and I are both wearing the hoodies. It's cold in my recording office, Mr. Kerr. I need to break out the space heater.
It's gross outside.
What's that?
So it was gross outside here, so that's why I'm in my hoodie here today in the city.
Yeah, it's rainy and ugly here too. All right, well, let's start with your recent travels. Number one on the list, Billy Bishop. Are you buying Billy Bishop or selling? How do you like that experience?
I love it so much, man. The best way to fly commercially is to take Porter. Soon to be Air Canada just announced last week into Billy Bishop. So Air Canada is going to start flying the turboprops to LaGuardia. Right now, you can just do Porter from Newark. I got to say, man, it's just such a great experience. I hadn't been to Terminal B in Newark in a very long time. It definitely looks better than the last time I was in there. Nothing all inspiring. But what I love about Terminal B, especially the morning Porter flight, gate B52 is the Porter turboprop. Right next door is the Singapore 777 that's going all the way to Singapore. So you literally have this tiny turboprop parked right next to the Singapore 777. But you take off, man. Always congested in Newark in the morning, so we taxi for about 45 minutes. The flight's only an hour. You land in Billy Bishop. We landed at 10:40. I was in the points.com office at 11:20. Just absolutely awesome. Getting through immigration, no problem. You got to download the Arrive Can app. It's the first time I've done that. So download the Arrive Can app, go to the express lane. You show your passport real quick, and they ask, what are you doing here? I'm like, business for 2 days. Luckily in life, I'm not a guy that tends to get stereotyped or pulled aside too often. And we were off into the Uber, and it was awesome. And the same thing coming back yesterday, man. We left the Aeroplan office. 15 minutes later, we're at Billy Bishop. 45 minutes before the flight leaves, you do the little underground tunnel. I still haven't taken the ferry, which I think is just so awesome.
I was just going to ask you if you went tunnel or ferry today, this past trip.
Just we were not cutting it close because I was literally 5 minutes after you get there, you're at your gate. There's no line or anything. But walk the underground, moving walkways up to the little island. You go through security in 5 seconds. You're down at the gate. They start boarding. The whole Q400 is boarded in 10 minutes, and you're chilling. A 30-second taxi. Off you go. An hour later, you're landed in Newark, man. It's the best. And I will say, the Bombardier Q400 Porter seats have more legroom than any domestic carrier that we fly here in the U.S. I would say solid 34-inch seat pitch there. And then I just love watching. I put a video up on my Instagram stories. The turboprop and the landing gears you're coming into landing. It's just super for us dorks. Watching the wheels hit the turf or hit the runway and kick up the smoke and start spinning that fast. I love it. Yeah, that is as close to as flying private as leaving Billy Bishop and landing in Newark that you're gonna get. It is just. But I'll tell you this: we got back to Newark. You do not. While Toronto Pearson is a pre-clearance facility, Billy Bishop is not. So you do have to clear immigration at Newark. Which again, if you have global entry, fine. Unless you get to the global entry line and the lady's yelling at everybody, global entry is down. So I learned something new yesterday. Even though the global entry was down, if you downloaded the global entry app and filled out your clearance in the app, you could just go by and show the officer the app. I didn't know you could do that. And I was like, if global entry is down, but I can still use the global entry app, then is global entry really down, or what's down over here? I don't understand. But anyways, got through still in 5 minutes. I was in a taxi because I wasn't playing pickup games yesterday because my dad was coming in town and I had to get to a dinner. Dude, it's Thursday and it feels like it's Sunday. How crazy this week has been. But I will tell you this, man, I forgot how much a taxi is. It is, if you can wait a few minutes, the Lyft was going to be $65. We landed at Newark yesterday at 4 p.m. So you're going against traffic, which is always nice. So only 35 minutes down into the city. $65 for a Lyft. You want to guess what I paid out the door with tip for a taxi for a yellow cab?
$50.
$117. Yeah, $117.
You're quoting. Yeah, you were quoting not Lyft Black prices, or whatever their top service is.
This was regular Lyft for $65 versus $117 for a yellow cab. And I was like, and you wonder why you guys are not very popular. That is
but regular Lyft is. That's college student driving around in their 2006 Toyota Camry.
Not in New York, man. Maybe in Omaha, Nebraska, or somewhere. But in New York, these guys are that's all they do every day. And if you're making that much, 35 minutes, $65. I love leaving my apartment. It's a great location in the city where we're at. it was 20 minutes door to door from my apartment to Newark early to catch the Porter flight out. And that was still $75 for a 20-minute ride to the airport, which, thankfully Pilt's picking up the tab on that. But I'm like, this is absolutely ridiculous. If you have not done the Billy Bishop Porter experience, do it now. If you can wait until next year, you can do Air Canada to LaGuardia and a few other locations. Air Canada just opened up a Maple Leaf Lounge at the Billy Bishop Airport, which is, again, because I'm flying Porter, have no reason to try it out yet. It is the best way to just fly commercial. So I love trips to Toronto. It was awesome. The Blue Jays were playing in the World Series, and I stayed at the Fairmont York and used my platinum status for Fairmont, got an awesome upgrade to a suite, but they had a huge screen in the lobby bar playing the World Series game, and we left the business dinner and came back to the hotel and had an awesome time getting rowdy with all the Toronto fans watching the World Series there at the Fairmont with some incredibly overpriced beers at the Fairmont lobby bar.
I do love that hotel. Super easy access to both airports.
Walk across the street to Union Station, take the train to Pearson, or literally 15 minutes in a cab to Billy Bishop. So it is. I would say the Fairmont there, nothing is old and worn out. It's just a tired decor, I guess is the way to say it. Like it's very dark. It's very dark in there. Like not
it's
a
dark,
modern.
But I wouldn't say that that's old.
Well, you are old, so maybe we have different opinions on this, but still an incredible historical hotel. They have a tour that will go around and give you a tour of the lobby spaces, and you can see where the Queen signed the book because it is called the Royal York for a reason. And just if you do have an opportunity to stay there, but luckily our partners at Accor got us a nice business to business rate because, dude, it was over $700 a night, and I think the folks at Accor hooked us up for a way better deal than that. So a bit pricey, but very cool. And if you have Accor points, then you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, I called an audible and changed one of our topics in just a second. I get to surprise you with it. So I combined a couple so we could ask, so we could have a follow up on exactly that. So, and I will clarify before we move on from our number one, the guys on Dots, Lines, and Destinations covered this last week. You're correct. Air Canada is spinning a number of destinations up and the frequencies as well. They're going to go from 300 plus flights a day at a month at a Billy Bishop to over 700. So going to see a lot more traffic in and out of Billy Bishop. And I'll be interested to see how it all works out. I do hope that they go full pre-clearance there. I think that'll be, super helpful for places like LaGuardia, obviously.
Yeah.
But I am all in on Billy Bishop and all in on Porter. All right, next up on the list, JetBlue. And this is the one where we're going to combine a couple of things. So two-part question here. First off, there were some comments that Jamie Dimon made pretty surprisingly earlier this week that he thought that a potential rail merger might be the gateway to JetBlue merging with someone. So there are a couple of large rail companies in the U.S. that are talking about merging. The general consensus is that the current administration is probably favorable to those sorts of mergers, and that might pave the way for JetBlue to merge with Alaska, United, or potentially Southwest. Generally speaking, Delta and American are bigger domestically. So my first question for you, Mr. Kerr, as part of this two-part question is, if you had to pick which one of those three, Alaska, United, or Southwest, do you think JetBlue is most likely to merge with if they were to have a merger on the horizon?
I think based on the new Blue Skies partnership that we see between United and JetBlue, there are obviously some close relationships there and folks looking at each other's business. So I'm going to go United and JetBlue.
Yeah, I think I would go United JetBlue too, though I think it's an interesting fit for all three. I would say Alaska
could not be different on board products.
Yes, very true. Very true. I think if Alaska had control of JetBlue, I think it starts to make them much more of a national airline. They announced a bunch of routes in the last few days that strengthen some of their West Coast hubs, San Diego, Portland, Seattle, stuff like that. But they're still very much a West Coast airline as opposed to a true national airline. And they're touching some U.S. cities that they haven't touched in a long time, but not in any sort of meaningful way. Like they've got a Portland, Baltimore, and a Portland, Philly, but it's not like they're going to fly that 3 or 4 times a day. So it's not a business travel schedule. They did announce some interesting flights like Honolulu to Burbank, but again, not super strong on the East Coast. So I think JetBlue could be a really good fit for all three of these airlines. United is my favorite in the clubhouse, though I think I'm rooting for it to go to Alaska.
Honolulu to Burbank, that's a short runway, right? Some pretty nifty fuel restrictions to get in.
I think they're actually lengthening the runway as part of the terminal expansion there. I wouldn't swear by that.
I thought all the Southern Californians were more of get off my lawn because of the noise and things. I know that's the case. That's the case at SNA, right? Is very strict curfew to get in and out of there, if I recall.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting. That would be a cool flight to do, Honolulu to Burbank. I'd do that because you're not
yeah.
landing at LAX. That's why it's cool.
Yeah, for sure. Second part of this question, I'm curious. It's funny because I've been researching JetBlue for a couple of weeks now, thinking about buying some long-term options on them because of the fact that I do think they could be a merger candidate going forward. And I guess my question is with Spirit on the outs, what do you think JetBlue's outlook is for the next 2 years? If you're, like if you're somebody chasing, the 25 years of lifetime status, are you high on JetBlue's future right now, or do you think that they're in trouble?
I really hope so. We had a built team leadership dinner last night, and my COO was talking about he just flew back from Nantucket, and he was like, all of these people on this flight with me from Nantucket were all wearing these like 25 for 25 T-shirts, and they're all like some kind of party. And he was like, I had to ask what they were doing. He was like, heard you know about this thing, the 25 for 20? I was like, of course I know about this thing.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't get over how people were doing that just for the status. I hope the people doing that are high on JetBlue's future. I don't know, man. I wish I was smart enough to really understand a whole lot more about the airline industry itself, not just the loyalty industry. It just seems like an incredibly difficult business to make money in that, me investing in an airline is not something I'm going to ever do. I know this is far more in your wheelhouse and the things that you somehow have time to keep an eye on. I'm certainly not investing in any airline anytime soon because I've never seen that work out for folks, So I would be curious to hear why. Why are you considering this? Because I am certainly not.
Yeah, so a couple of things. I mean, I've made money on airline stocks a couple of times. I don't know that I've ever really truly lost my shirt on them, but I'm a very opportunistic buyer and not something where I'm going to hold it long term. I remember buying American as they were going into bankruptcy, and they actually were one of the few that did not invalidate all their shares during bankruptcy, so we actually made money on that. It was fairly rare. I didn't think it was going to end up as badly as it did initially, but it turned out to be good overall. Here's my thoughts on JetBlue. The stock is, fairly low right now for sure, and I think that the last 6 months have been bad for them. I mean, they've obviously downsized. There's been a lot of headwinds. I'm not saying that I think there's a tremendous story for them, but I think clearly Spirit going away strengthens them, and I think that the current administration would consider a merger. So if I'm thinking about the long-term prospects of JetBlue, I think they're more likely to be for their stock to go up over the next year to 2 years than I am for it to go down. And, there's obviously recession headwinds that we need to think about. Is the economy going to continue to soften? We saw a 10% United fare sale this past week, which was sort of a bizarre thing to see, 10% on any domestic flight. So there's signs of softening, but I'm talking about buying JetBlue options for 2027 and 2028. So real long-term, long horizon stuff. Not sure I'd want to hold JetBlue stock long term. But I do think JetBlue has a rosier outlook than some people might think right now. And hearing Jamie Dimon talk about it was sort of like a double-edged sword for me. I was glad to hear him think that there might be good prospects. But I also kind of sort of wanted to fly under the radar and be able to, think about investing in them before anybody else jumped on it. So
I wish you luck in your crusade to make money off the airline industry.
Well, you can make money going up and make money going down. Just depends on how brave you are. Puts and calls are a real thing. All right, let's talk about Delta reestablishing themselves in Asia. For folks that don't know, Delta and United both have interesting flight rights, if you will, to be able to establish flights out of Tokyo that date back to World War II, if I remember correctly. United has a much larger international presence, especially in Asia, than Delta does, and Delta has been rumored to be trying to regrow this. We have some more confirmed rumors coming out of John NYC, who's a industry insider, saying that Singapore and Manila are going to be new Delta destinations coming soon. So the question is, and you brought up an interesting third option here. I was saying whether they're more likely to launch those out of Seattle or LAX, and you brought up the fact that they do still have the Tokyo rights. So I guess my question is, if Delta's expanding, where do you think they are going to connect Singapore and Manila to? Is it going to be Tokyo, Seattle, or LAX?
I would have to vote Tokyo and Seattle. Another option that I would find interesting, given the SkyTeam partner, would be Taipei, that they have there with China Airlines. That could be interesting to see. I think the business demand into the Philippines is only going to continue to rise as people continue to find cheap sources of labor in manufacturing there, given some of the other geopolitical things happening with other large manufacturers in China. But I do see this as, United has obviously had a huge expansion back into Guam and, with their new routes they're flying to the islands, they're doing Mongolia. They had their inaugurals to Bangkok and Vietnam this week. I saw our friend Michelle on both of those in the same day. Michelle, if you're listening, which you're not, you're crazy for doing all that flying in a single day. So I don't think Delta likes that. I think they're like, wait a minute now, we can get some action going on over here in the Asia Pacific as well. And this is, routes that they used to, certainly when I lived in Tokyo, they flew Tokyo to Singapore. I think that was a daily flight that they did. And I sat in the Sky Club in Narita several times. I flew Delta from Tokyo to Taipei, the only time that I've been to Taiwan. So, maybe they just don't like the other guys in blue and white having all of the fun over there in Asia Pacific. But it'd be great to see the Tokyo stuff come back.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm going to look up while we're talking here real quick because I'm curious what the stage length would be for, say, like Haneda to Singapore. So, how many miles is that? That's 3,200 miles. So I'm going to have a slightly different answer than you. I'm going to go Tokyo and LAX. At 3,200 miles, they could certainly put a narrow body on something like that.
Ugh.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, there's a lot of narrow bodies flying stuff like that. Manila's going to be 1,800, so that's clearly narrow body territory. But I also think that they're going to bulk up at LAX. With Alaska having some wide bodies out of Seattle right now, I feel like while Delta could go into Seattle with routes like this, I think LAX is more likely for them. At least like looking through the tea leaves, and I'm not industry expert level like the guys over at the air show, but I just don't see a lot of huge wins for Delta in Seattle. They're doing okay there, but it's certainly not their most profitable focus city by any stretch of the imagination. And I just think from an onward flow standpoint, they're more likely to launch these in LA than Seattle. That's my 2 cents, and I'm sticking to it.
I'll take it. Valid arguments, but wrong, but valid.
Yep, there you go. Quite right, Mr. Kerr. All right, number 4 on the list. This is a great one because I'm traveling multiple times between now and the next time we record. Will we have a major TSA/ATC meltdown before we record a podcast episode again?
I mean, based on what I'm seeing happen in Atlanta now with the number of sick outs because folks are missing 2 paychecks and it turns out you need a paycheck to live life. Those lines are horrendous in Atlanta, a place that struggles even in the best of times. With staffing, they certainly are falling way behind now. And I say yes. It may not be nationwide, but this is certainly starting to get past the point of being silly to just downright cruel to these folks who don't get a paycheck. And I think they'll have enough of it, rightfully so.
Yep, I agree. And yes, I do think we will have a major meltdown. I think it's more likely to be ATC. We talked about this. I think there's more issues with ATC staffing than there is necessarily with TSA staffing right now, and so you don't need as many people to call out ATC to cause a pretty big ripple effect. I do realize I need to go first on some of these, but the next one's specifically just for you. It's my wild card question for you. So you talked about Fairmont Royal York, and so as you were north of the border, you were Mr. Accor. Given that you're traveling less and Hyatt Globalist is still high on your list, I guess my question is if you were going to be going to Canada, a handful of times next year, are you Team Accor when you're outside the U.S. right now for paid stays, or are you Team Hyatt?
That's a tough one because I love these Accor points. Luckily, I still have a stash from our transfer bonus. And I would say, no, still going to be Hyatt for life, man. Again, just the example of, when family comes in, I've got a lovely team at the Beekman who takes care of us, and having that, wonderful breakfast with my dad in the morning is a 5-minute walk away. I'm going to do everything I can to continue to show Hyatt my loyalty, but will I deflect a few stays to Accor? I sure will, especially while I still have this platinum status, which has been very beneficial on the few stays that we've done. But the Park Hyatt Toronto is also a lovely place to stay, where I usually stay in Toronto. Very affordable as far as Park Hyatts go. And I missed it a little bit this time. It was nice to check out the Fairmont, and that was a really cool property. But I would foresee myself still going back to the Park Hyatt Toronto on the next day.
Yeah, I like the Park Hyatt Toronto, but I've enjoyed Fairmont Royal York, and at least especially when I'm not traveling via Billy Bishop, there's something easy about taking the train, and then you're effectively, 1-block walk to Fairmont Royal York. So
it is very convenient, yes.
Yeah.
In downtown Toronto, the streets have been dug up since I've been going there for 3.5 years now. They're building an actual new subway line, as I understand it, and new streetcar lines, and downtown traffic can be a disaster. Like if you want to get to the airplane office right now, you got to be dropped off 2 blocks away and walk because the streets are just completely dug up. So bit of a mess, and that's a great point, actually. If it continues to be that big of a mess, being able to just walk across the street from the train station to the Fairmont would be very, very convenient.
Yeah, and I'd say I was up the Aeroplan offices in December, so almost a year ago, and spoiler alert, it was exactly the same. There was no way to get to the office directly. Had to hoof it from, call it 2 blocks away because of the construction. So it's pretty messy. And I don't know when they're actually going to have that done. It's been that way. I think it was that way the trip before. So it's been that way for probably 18 months.
I mean, I look back 2022, the first time I went up there, and it was the same. So of course, they have everybody commenting on. We walked in the office, and I was like, man, this is somehow looking worse than when we were here a year ago. And they're like, yep, and it's going to be this way for another 3 to 4 years. I was like, holy cow! Like, remember when we used to get stuff done fast as a society, and now good grief.
Yeah. All right, we'll stop halfway through our list to talk about our sponsor this week, Thrifty Traveler. As a brief aside, Kyle Potter over there just released an article on something that I had actually seen when I was searching for some flights for a friend of mine, but some reductions in price on United Saver inventory for business class overseas, which I think is interesting. So he commented that typically we're seeing 88,000 miles one way for those flights, and now a bunch of them are popping up at 80. Which I did see last week and the week before when I was running some searches. I don't think I made the connection that it was as widespread as it is. But I guess I would just ask you in general, are you surprised to see that United has lowered partner airline pricing on a number of, it looks like, according to Kyle, across most of their partnerships, they've reduced the price on these one-way flights?
I think we're always surprised these days when we see a price reduction, especially in partner pricing, especially in premium cabins. So yes, very surprised.
Well, big thanks to Thrifty Traveler for sponsoring the show. If you sign up for their newsletters, Daily Beat or the Extra Mile, you'll get articles like this that advise you of drops in prices. And there are more drops in prices. We're actually going to talk about one a little bit later in the show. But right now, we have a promo code GO20. We'll save you $20 off your first year of Thrifty Traveler Premium. And we'll include a link to that in the show notes for how you can sign up for it. They do have a free alert service if you're not ready to start paying for it. But I would argue that it is one of the more valuable tools that I use. And I've got 3 examples from this past week of deals that I wish I could have taken advantage of. So JFK to Sao Paulo, Brazil, 58,000 miles each way for business class. Northern Europe flights on Finnair. I have not flown Finnair's product. I think, did Mrs. Kerr fly Finnair?
No, not Finnair. We haven't done that yet.
Okay. Somebody I know flew Finnair recently, 49,000 points each way, and then 60,000 points business class on United to go to Europe. So all of those were fabulous deals this past week that Thrifty Traveler referenced. And then as of time of recording, they actually just popped up a nerd alert. $1,000 one-way Emirates first, Christchurch to Sydney. That's interesting.
Saw that. Got that today. Yeah, just a little bit ago.
Yeah, in my free time, I should book a few of those. So anyway, we are big fans of Thrifty Traveler on the show. Been a subscriber for a number of years. I think they crank out a lot of good stuff over there. And I think this week's deals are, man, pretty solid. And I'm going to have to, I hope that deal on the Christchurch to Sydney is still live when we're done recording, because I'd love to grab that one. But look for the link in the show notes. We'll have some subscriptions to give away here shortly as well. So back to our list, Mr. Kerr, number 6 on the list. I'll go first on this one. Best business class credit card. Last time we did 10 topics in a show, we talked about the best personal credit card, and we had divergent opinions on that one. On this one, I'm not sure if we're going to agree or not, but I am actually going to go with the Chase Sapphire Reserve for Business, a card that sort of snuck up on me because I did not have a Sapphire Reserve personal card, but I find myself using this card quite a bit. And I think a big part of it is the 3x points on social media and search engine advertising is a good thing for us from a business standpoint. 4 points per dollar in flights and hotel bookings. I haven't messed around with the edit yet, which would be 8 points per dollar. But those 2 bonus categories are really rewarding ones for me. Also does 5 points per dollar on Lyft rides, which is not a huge one for me. Other cards I considered were Capital One, but quite frankly, with the problems I had the last couple of months, it's hard for me to recommend that as an everyday business credit card. And I would say, given a little bit more time, a little bit more exploration, maybe the Amex Biz Plat with the changes to the construction category could be my top card. But right now I'm going Chase Sapphire Reserve for Business as my favorite business credit card right now.
I'm torn between 2 here. So I would say the Amex Business Gold Card, which currently has a 100,000 point sign-up bonus, but we have seen targeted offers much higher than that for annual fee of $375. And man, I just do like the Venture X Business Card. I cannot speak to your frustrations that you've obviously had with them, as far as simple things like paying the bills. But 2x miles on everything, 150,000 mile sign-up bonus, $300 annual travel credits, Capital One lounge access. This card just continues to be something that I keep in my, the personal version of it that I keep in my wallet. I continue to keep, premium. All my car rentals go on it because of their car rental coverage, collision damage waiver. And I just am not going to encourage somebody to spend $1,000 a year on a credit card right now. Like, there's just too many good options here in this medium price points in order to try and get somebody to spend 3 times as much. But the business gold card, you do have, I believe, the 4x points in the top 2 categories, and you get to pick from 6. So it looks like transit purchases, including trains, taxi cabs, rideshare services, ferries, tolls, parking, buses, and subway, purchase from electronic good retailers and software and cloud, monthly wireless cell phone, gas stations, restaurants, including takeout and delivery, and then U.S. media providers such as online Google ads. Like pretty much every business today should be maximizing 2 of these categories out. Even if you're just doing online ad spend and getting 4x points for only $390 or $375 a year for the business gold, I think that's pretty solid stuff right there. So if you make me pick, I'm going to say, hey, look out for these targeted offers that are more than 100,000 welcome points for the Amex Business Gold, and that's the best card right now.
Yeah, I held the business gold. I actually might still have it. I need to double check. And I agree, there's a lot of value there. And I thought about including it. I think probably the reason why I shy away from it is just because it's prepaid hotels via Amex Travel for that 3X, which is not my favorite. I think you bring up a lot of good points about the Capital One card. I think the Capital One travel credit are the easiest to use of the bunch. The $300 travel credit via the Capital One travel portal is super easy to use. So I would agree that that's a plus for that card. And maybe if I hadn't had the last 2 months of hell with Capital One, I might have notched them up the top, because I do have a lot of Capital One miles. And, I mean, their travel portal is, I wouldn't say it's easy to use, but it's of the travel portals right now that I book hotels through, it's one of the easier ones to use. All right, well, you get to go first on the next one, man. And this was a last minute audible that I threw on the list that you and I have not had a lot of time to think about. One place that you haven't visited that you really want to.
There's a lot, but if I had to pick one, it would be like a full tour of New Zealand that I have not been able to do yet. I've only been to Auckland for a very short amount of time. I really want to go do all of the nature and sightseeing of the South Island and everything around it. So New Zealand full tours, and one place I want to go I have not done yet.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and that's not what I picked. I did think about picking it because Foz from Dots Lines Destinations and I were talking back and forth last night and this morning about taking some flights to either Christchurch or Adelaide, and then working our way back to the U.S. on Starlux, Taipei to, West Coast somewhere. I haven't figured out where yet because I can't find saver inventory. He already snagged it. So definitely on my radar, and quite frankly, if I could tag a few days in New Zealand and take Starlux on the way back, that would be a compelling choice for me. But for me, it's going to be a glaring hole on my map, Mr. Kerr. As much as I am flying a ton this year and have flown a ton over the course of my life, there's one very large chunk of land I've never been to. South America.
Oh, that's right. You still haven't been down there. Yeah, you should go. It's the whole continent down there. Like, it's pretty
I've
great.
heard it's a whole continent, and I do think I should visit that continent at some point. So that's definitely high on my list of places to go. It just, for whatever reason, hasn't worked out. It was sort of like the Hawaii thing. I've enjoyed Hawaii both times we've been. It just never worked out to get there just because of how far away it is. And so I've had a couple of flights booked to South America. I had a couple of trips booked to Iguazu that we had to cancel. Just never made it there. It's on the radar. Just haven't made it there yet. So next up on the list, another article from the guys at Thrifty Traveler. They are showing some signs that Hilton is rolling back some of their recent award rate hikes. And we talked about this a few weeks ago on the show, how painful some of these changes were. But another sign of some interesting softening. One of the interesting properties that Kyle in this article quotes is that the Conrad at Evermore, which you and I stayed at down in Orlando, dropping from 105,000 points a night to 90,000 points a night. 90,000 is still a bit high on the Hilton side of things, but in the realm of what could be considered reasonable at certain times of year. What do you make of Hilton dropping these prices so quickly after they raised them?
There was obviously, quite a bit of flack going their way because of the not the first time that they've raised award prices. I think maybe they saw bookings drop as well, and when you put prices up like that, you start to see potentially, again, I'm speaking nothing, this is my personal opinion, I have no knowledge of this and how it's performed, just a lot of assumptions on my part, so important caveat there. But if you start to put the goalpost that high for a stay, you're going to start seeing people give up in other areas of your business, right? That could affect co-brand acquisition. It could affect co-brand spend. It could affect the bookings that you see cash-wise. If people are like, I got to get this many points now for a free night, my business is going to go elsewhere. Like, who knows what they saw that made them go back on a few of these properties. But yeah, I don't know too many other Conrads in the world that are going to be less than 100,000 points a night. I would be interested to do that study. Certainly not the ones that I've looked at recently. There's a Conrad very close to our apartment here in New York City, and I tell you, it's not anywhere close to 90,000 points a night when I've looked to put family up there. So a good move that should be celebrated by all of us.
Yeah, should definitely be celebrated. I think it's important to remind folks, when you think about things like this, these point totals are a little bit of a dance between the properties and the programs and the reimbursement rates and things like that. And so, it's never 100% straightforward as to why they make changes like this. But, clearly from a redemption standpoint, there's, it feels like maybe Hilton felt like they overstepped in setting the rates where they were for the Evermore property. I haven't looked at that property compared to some of the on-site Hiltons. I've paid cash for some of the on-site Hiltons at Disney World in the past when the rates were low, but it's probably worth looking at that for a future episode just to see how 90,000 at Evermore compares with a couple like the Hilton Signia and the Waldorf that are at the Bonnet Creek place, especially with, like we enjoyed the stay that we had at Signia, call it 3 or 4 months ago. I would definitely consider staying there again.
Yeah. Evermore's a place that's been on the radar for the 40th birthday party for yours truly here next year. I need to make a decision on that quick so people know where to go. I was just looking at FlightAware, or not FlightAware, but Flighty here, seeing what's going on with my sister's flight and a little cool Halloween animation going on. So you may not be able to see this by the time you listen to it, but there are ghosts and there are flying pumpkin bats that are now the planes instead of the plane icons. So good job, Flighty, with a little bit of the seasonal decoration there.
Nice. I need to pull that up myself. I don't have any flights to look at, so I'll have to live vicariously through you, Mr. Kerr. All right, next up on the list is something you and I talked about having on the show previously. We just hadn't done all the details yet. So Southwest debit card is out. A couple of highlights here for folks. 1 point per dollar spent on all eligible Southwest Airlines purchases. A point for every $2 spent on everything else. Pretty modest sign-up bonus. 2,500 point welcome bonus if you have recurring deposits and spend $100 in the first 90 days. Interesting enough, a 20% off promo code every January with the card. Annual spend bonus, you can earn up to 7,500 bonus points on your card member anniversary based on your annual spend each year. There's a companion pass point bonus as part of this card, and all points you spend on the card count toward the companion pass. So this is an interesting one for me. Debit cards are something that really got gutted a number of years ago. Dodd-Frank bill really, killed the efficacy of the debit cards. I'm just like looking at I took a quick look at the debit card layout, and there's not a whole lot to compete with here in terms of debit cards. So it's really just what would you be giving up for other no annual fee cards to spend on this Southwest debit card? And I'd say unless you're a Southwest diehard and the companion pass is something that's really high on your list, I'm probably a nay on this card. And I also think there's a reasonable chance that the boundaries might change for companion pass, just given everything else that's changed at Southwest over the past year to 18 months. So I think I'm a no on the debit card. Where's your head at?
I'll tell you why I'm intrigued by this, and that is because of all the things that you can't pay with a credit card today, but sometimes they let you pay with a debit card with no additional fee or with like a flat $1 or $2 fee. The example for this week that comes to mind is I got to pay the kids a summer camp deposit for their 2 weeks sleepaway camp next summer. 3% fee for a credit card, but they let you use a debit card for a $1.95 fee. And I was like, hey, if that's a few thousand Southwest points where otherwise I would get nothing, then, maybe this would be a worthwhile option. And what other expenses do I have in life? I got property taxes coming up for the place back in Georgia. Like, can I use a debit card? I got to log into the county and see if that's the case. Like, if it's the case where I can get, some decent rewards here where I would otherwise get nothing for a much smaller fee than 3%, then it might be worth taking a look here at the old Southwest debit card, because I don't know what other rewards or any debit cards are out there today. Like, I don't know. I'm sure there's something, but I have no idea.
Yeah, nothing great that I found. You bring up a good point, and I probably have to look at my spend in those categories where I can't use a credit card without a fee. So TBD on Southwest debit card for me. Last up on our list, Rove Miles, something you and I have chatted about on text threads. We talked about it on Happy Hour for our Slack group. This one's come up a handful of times, and I think the big headline that popped up was 51 miles per dollar for, I think it was a Moxie stay in Times Square or something like that.
Yep.
I'm not even sure what question I'm trying to ask here with you going first. Is it sustainable? Where the heck is it coming from? What do we think it's going to do? But what's your opinion on Rove Miles right now, man?
Number one, I applaud the headlines that they've gotten. That's certainly always one of the jobs of a founder in a business when they're starting, is get the headlines and get the press, because that's how you're going to acquire the customers. And they've certainly done well there. I've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years, building a travel business and the day job and a portal and looking at hotel commissions and rewards and the finances. I don't even pretend to understand what they're doing or how they're doing it. And maybe there's a secret code, and that's, the genius of startups, is sometimes people figure out how to do things another way that nobody else has. And, that's got to be the case here versus, what is typically the status quo of the finances on hotel commissions and rebates and funding rewards out of that while still making money. Maybe the path here is just growth. But my short answer is I don't understand how they're doing what they're doing. And, I have said this in the text thread to you guys, like I try and give people the benefit of the doubt because all anybody told me 4.5 years ago was, Bill's just burning VC money and there's no way they're making any money. And, everybody's tried to do this. And when the VC money runs out, then it's all going to be downhill from there. Not the case for us. So I won't put that label on the Rove publicly, but I am certainly intrigued to figure out, what the business model is here that's allowed them to do. I know the rough cost of some of the things they're giving away. The example that you brought up, I think it was 20,000 Rove Miles that they were giving back. Like I know what that costs pretty much if they transfer out to partners. And I just don't understand the model. But that doesn't mean that they haven't figured out something that I haven't. It could be something I don't even know. It could be like something cool that I don't even know about. If you want to quote Will Ferrell there. So no idea how they're doing what they're doing. Super intrigued and interested by it. And, we'll continue to watch what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, for folks that aren't familiar with Rove Miles, the partners are really international airlines. They do a partnership with Accor as well, but you're talking Air France, KLM Flying Blue, Etihad Guest, Finnair, Turkish Airlines, Miles and Smiles. So definitely would be having to redeem with international airlines, obviously some opportunity to do that on domestic U.S. flights, book through some of those programs, but those are your transfer partners, which I still see, value in those transfer partners for sure. I tried to navigate through the website when that deal popped up. I was, playing around with it on my phone. I didn't find it terribly easy to navigate. There definitely were properties that were missing on the hotel side of things. I checked a couple of the bookings for properties I had coming up and for the most part found 10 miles per dollar, which is par for the course, when you consider what you can get booking through like, Capital One's travel portal, stuff like that. If I was to do 8X on Chase Sapphire Reserve for Business through their travel portals, I think the 10X is competitive. The 50X I just don't understand. And certainly heard about some folks doing some shenanigans with like non-refundable properties and stuff like that. It's all interesting to me. Since I don't have a dog in the hunt here and I don't work for Built, I think I can say that I do think this is burning VC cash. That's my best assumption. I just don't know how you could make something like 50X ever be viable. It's certainly an attention grabber. And it's gotten them a lot of headlines. So it may be a smart way to spend that money. I just don't think there's a viable business model with those sorts of numbers. 10, sure. 15, maybe even. Once you get up into 20 and 25, I'm just not sure how you fade that with where I think hotel commissions are.
The only thing I would tell folks is, same thing I tell you if you're looking at the, my day job portal is, shop around, see what kind of rates you're doing. The only thing I can figure out is I have not done any comparison shopping between Rove rates and direct rates with a property. They could be marking up rates significantly in order to fund it. And that's just not something that I've checked out yet, which is probably the next place that I'll, start to see, what their rates are versus the publicly available.
Yeah, the ones that I looked at were higher, but not disgustingly so. And it could have been tied to other programs. I've been doing some comparison, as on the home away from home stuff for Built. And, with various properties, especially Vegas, it's sort of a very unique market when it comes to hotel rates. So just checking the Vegas market, I really wasn't able to tell a whole lot about the rates that Rove was showing off. But I do have some trips coming up to other places and figure I'll compare Rove in places like Seattle and New York, where I would expect there to be a little bit more rate parity. So more to come on Rove Miles. I'm certainly intrigued and I'm certainly watching. Mr. Kerr, we have reached the end of our list, and that means that our time here is drawing short, and I will miss you.
Oh, until we chat again in 30 seconds over text message.
Any airplanes for you in the next week or so?
There's not. That doesn't mean that something can't pop up. I was supposed to actually fly down to DC and back today for the day, but couldn't make it work. So the next trip right now, I believe, is a little road trip that we're going to do up to the Hudson Valley to go explore the new surroundings and get out of the city. But that's just a rental car and a couple hours away. So no airplanes until cruise to Disney at the end of November.
Yeah, and last time we talked about you exploring, I couldn't remember the name of that amusement park up in Connecticut. It's Lake Compounce. So that's the wooden roller coaster that goes through the trees and the hills. So
Lake, spell that?
Lake Compounce. C-O-M as in Mary, P-O-U-N-C-E. So, but put on the radar in your free time.
Color me intrigued. Yes.
Color you intrigued. I'm coloring you green based on the way you look right now. But yes, you can be intrigued too. I have I have Universal Studios this weekend. We're doing some horror nights over at Universal for a first and quick weekend down there. Then back, and then probably record one more time before I go to Europe. So definitely plenty of travel left on my radar. I'll be in Vegas a bunch. For folks that don't know, I'll be appearing at Zorkfest in December. So if you want to know about casino and travel loyalty and hear the story of the first time I remember meeting Mr. Kerr, he'll tell you it wasn't the first time we actually met. You can come out to Zorkfest, and I'll be sure to tell those stories in early December. We may actually have Mr. Traeger on in November to talk a little bit more about the show. Big thanks to the folks at Thrifty Traveler for sponsoring the show. Big thanks to everyone in our Slack community for supporting the show as well. Mr. Kerr, can't wait to see you in person, and I don't know when the heck that is. Until we upload again, we've got miles to go. Sweet. I like that.
Great. I could be less excited.
Very ominous.
I couldn't be less excited about your story, Kerr. Great. Let's start the podcast.
I don't like you.
I don't like you.